Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum, and today we are going to discuss more about ASP.NET MVC as we did on in our last online session. So I hope my voice is clear in this video again. Last time we talked about some of the topics in ASP.NET MVC. You guys asked very good questions, and I also discussed about some of the project that I have done in ASP.NET MVC. But in the last minutes of the video, live video, my internet got disconnected with mobile, so the session was disconnected. So today we are going to discuss more about ASP.NET MVC. If you have any questions. So we have two online viewers. If you have any questions that you would like to ask about ASP.NET MVC, sure, you can ask. Hi Anisha Kulari, how are you? Okay, so in the meantime, I can discuss about myself. As most of you know, I'm Sajjad Iqbal, and I've been ASP.NET MVC developer for about 2 years now, and I have developed many projects with ASP.NET MVC. Most notably, right now we are working on Argam.com, which is financial news portal of Middle East, and it talks more in detail about stocks listed across Middle Eastern countries. Okay, so you can ask any questions that you would like to discuss, as I have some experience in ASP.NET MVC. When I myself was starting ASP.NET MVC, I was getting very confused with a lot of technologies that are involved in the development of project with ASP.NET MVC. So I'm sure, and as we can also see, so hopefully there are many people who would be interested. Hi Basit Amin, Walaikum Assalam, how are you? Okay, so I was talking about the current project that we are working on, and that involves ASP.NET MVC. So I was discussing about Argam.com, and Argam.com is basically a financial media portal that lists all the companies that are listed on their stock exchanges on the Middle Eastern countries. If you go on Argam.com, you can even see it live, and that website is completely developed on ASP.NET MVC. So it is a very good example to see the limitations and what you can achieve with ASP.NET MVC. So you would have many confusions related to, like, is this even possible with the with ASP.NET MVC? So you can go and look at that website, and you can see there are a lot of features, and this website is being developed from last 8 years, as I recall. And before that it was developed in some other language, but from last 8 years it is being developed in ASP.NET MVC. Walaikum Assalam, Amir Ali. So if you go on Argam.com, you can find a lot of features, and I have learned a lot with this Argam.com, and I was lucky to work on this project. And if you because it also involves some web APIs and even mobile applications. So you can go and have a look, and if you have any question related to it, you would think that I should discuss, please sure ask in the comments, and I'll sure answer them. Okay, so seems like we haven't got any questions like in our last session. In our last session, a lot of the viewers asked very good questions. So if you have any questions or any confusions, or if you are even thinking about starting ASP.NET MVC and you want to know what we can achieve with it, sure, ask in our videos comments. Amirali, we are not talking about MVVM, we are talking about MVC. I'm sure you can hear me, hear my voice. I don't know if it's clear or not. Okay, so Bilal Amin, you have asked a very good example, uses of web API in real life example of or any scenario. Okay, so let me tell you. As I talk about argam.com, so if you go to argam.com, you can see their website, and it has very detailed features that you can see. But mostly you see these days a lot of people have mobiles, and many websites offer their own mobile applications. So in order to show the content that we see on our website, sometimes we create web APIs, and those web APIs are being used in mobile applications. Like, let's say, let's talk about the Facebook. Okay, so you see, if you go to facebook.com and you open your account, that is a website. But if you want to use the same Facebook on your mobile, you simply open their mobile application, and that mobile application communicates with their servers with the help of web APIs. Okay, so as you can see, you can think that Facebook has a server in some part of the world, and in order to access that part for your own data or your own profile or your own time feed, news feed, you use their application, and that application is connecting with their servers with the help of web APIs. So I think it is a very common and good example of web APIs. And let me also tell you about the web APIs in more detail. Like nowadays, most of the web APIs are developed with the help of RESTful or developed in a manner of RESTful APIs. Okay, so previously, before web APIs, we were using web services. Okay, and web services were good, but what RESTful services has is it has defined a standard for all the web APIs to follow. Okay, so in RESTful APIs we have something we call GET request, POST request, PUT request, and DELETE request. Okay, and whenever we request some data from the server, we also receive its response, and we receive its status. And also, let me tell you about the format that we receive. Okay, so you can receive like if you know about XML. Okay, so XML is a format, JSON is a format, but most of the APIs uses JSON for its output. Okay, thank you, Waqas Siddiqui. I really appreciate the kind words. Okay, so if you have any questions related to my work, you can also ask what kind of work I do, because I myself am ASP.NET MVC developer. So, and it is part of my job to work on these projects. So if you want to know from a professional developer, you can ask. You are welcome, Bilal. Okay. Okay, so let me tell you something about if you are starting with ASP.NET MVC, I would suggest you to follow some book. Okay, I can recommend a few books, but what I would like to personally recommend is that you find out topics on your own. Okay, and then you can go to youtube.com and search for those particular topics on YouTube. and you can find many good tutorials on the YouTube. And yeah, if sometime if you are only following a full tutorial list, their scope is very limited. I felt myself that when I was starting with ASP.MVC, I started to watch a tutorial, and it was very good tutorial, and we developed a project called GitHub. Okay, and if some of you have watched those tutorial series, you would know that what GitHub is they basically in that project we had some musicians, and those musicians has some concerts and events, and some other users would attend those concerts. Okay, so we developed that project. But after the completion of that project, I thought that I am a very good ASP developer. How about if I start my own project? But when I start my own project, I started to experience a lot of issues. I started to develop a classifieds website, like if you know about OLX, I tried to develop OLX in ASP.MVC, and without any tutorial from Google or anything else. Whatever I have learned in my previous tutorial, I tried to implement that on my own in my own project. But I experienced a lot of issues. But when I tried to resolve those issues, I learned a lot of new things that weren't included in that in the scope of the tutorials. So what I would like to recommend is start your own project after you have already started ASP.MVC. Start your own project. Like it can be any project, like a management project or anything that you can think of. And after you start it, you will know that you will come across a few errors that are not solved, or you cannot find their solution on Google. Okay, so you have to search or ask from professional developers about that question, about those issues. So I think that is a very good approach in starting about ASP.MVC. Okay, so Fazil Ahmed has asked a question: how I can sync online and offline TV? Okay, so Fazil Ahmed, I think your issue is related to you might have a desktop application, and you would have an online server where your database exists. Okay, and you want to sync those two databases. Okay, so what you can do is, I personally haven't experienced this error that you, or this issue that you are facing right now. But I think what you can do is you can create a log file of all the operations that a user is performing, and whenever the internet is connected, you can then you can perform all those operations again on your remote database. Okay, so I think that is a very upper approach to your solution. But you can I think this would be very common issue, and you can search on Stack Overflow for this issue. Hi Bilal Sultan, I'm fine, how are you? Abdul Ghani Khan has asked a question: database first or code first, which is better? Okay, so if I answer that, some of you might be against me, but I personally like database code first approach in ASP.MVC, because what I felt is that we don't have to go about and doing changes in database all the time. Okay, so you can say that if your project is in the starting phase, you can follow code first approach. But after some time, like your project is in the release, or your project has a lot of users and it has already been released and it is a very big project, in that case you can follow database first approach. Okay, but I personally have felt that code first approach is better than database first approach in ASP.MVC. And some of you might not know about these approaches, code first and database first approach. These are basically approaches in ASP.MVC which you use for working for connecting your database and your code. Okay, so that is a very basic explanation of these two approaches. Okay, so Bilal has asked, means that it's a way to interact between different programming languages or mobile or web. You can say that web APIs are web API can be used for communicating between two programming languages, but most of the time what I have experienced is that these are used for mobile and web applications. Okay, between communication between mobile and a remote server. But let me tell you something about Argam. Argam.com is developed in ASP.NET MVC, and you can see that mobile applications are usually developed in Swift or Java on Android. Okay, and those applications, these applications have different language than our server. Our server and our web API uses ASP.NET MVC or C# for web API. So there are two different languages. Mobile applications are developed with Java or Swift, and those applications interact with our API, which is developing ASP.NET MVC. So this is why the output of our web API is very important. Like I talked earlier in the video, we have outputs like JSON and XML, and most of the time RESTful APIs have output of JSON. Okay, yeah, Abdul Ghani, code first is better approach in my own words. But sometimes you would like in my job place, here we use database first approach as well, but mainly we use database first approach here. Okay. Okay, so Fazil Ahmed has asked another question. Can I run an application with online and offline DB? Yeah, yes, you can. You can have an online and offline database, as is your second question. Hi everyone else, how are you all? Hi Rohit. You've gone from office and now you are watching my live video, Rohit. Rohit is basically my QA guy. Whenever I work on task, usually he is my QA guy, and he usually quality assured my work. Fadil Ahmed has asked another question. Can I pass a model class by using API or first we need to convert it in JSON first? Okay, so basically Fazil, in API, usually you follow all the steps that you would take, that you would perform on your web. Like let me tell you about, let me give you an example. Like if we have to display 10 products, okay, so those 10 products would be something like you want to display a list, okay, of the products, 10 products. But on the web, you would send a list to your view file. In API, what you would do is you would create the same 10 a list of 10 products, and you would use a JSON result output for that. Okay. So I hope you are clear about it. Bilal Amin has asked another question. What is WCF or why we use? I forgot what WCF is abbreviated for, but I think it is something related to your something similar to web APIs. And I personally haven't explored these WCFs, so I can't answer your question here. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so as some of you are watching this live video, any of you can, if you have any questions or any topic related to MVC that you would like to talk and that I should discuss, you can ask in the comments. Okay, so how about if I take one of you on the live video here? Rohit, would you like to come on the live video here with me so we can discuss what the real process between a developer and a tester or a QA guy is? Would you like to come online in this video? Rohit, I am talking to you. Bilal has asked another question. Windows Communication Foundation. Okay, that's a good abbreviation for WCF. But I personally haven't explored them. I have only worked with technologies such as Windows Forms, WPF, and ASP.NET MVC. I have explored very little web forms, only I think in my university time. I have also worked with developing front end of website, but I don't do that these days. I have worked with Bootstrap, material design, and my final year project was an Android application with its website. The website was developed and the mobile application was developed in Android. Okay, so Asad Mughal has asked a very good question: how to use Ajax in MVC, and I think it is a very it's very easy to do that. I'm not sure what's very hard about that, but anyway, let me explain. Okay, so first of all, let me explain what Ajax is. Okay, so usually Ajax is like something like let me give an example. Okay, so we have a page, okay, where we have to enter some fields, enter some values in some fields, like we have username and the password, and we click on the login button. Okay, and that login button basically does not reload the page and give us the result that if we are logged in or not. Okay, so without reloading the page, if we communicate with our server, that is where Ajax is used. Okay, so and usually Ajax is done with the help of Ajax function in jQuery. Okay, so what you do is you simply you have a URL that you want to hit, and you have the request, the tab of the request, like get request or post request. But usually if we are posting some data, it is a post request. Okay, so you define a URL, a request type, and that the data you want to send with that Ajax request. Okay, and that Ajax request will then respond in the done or the fail function, or we have another function as always. I think there are 3 functions with Ajax. Okay, so it is very easy to perform Ajax, and our server will receive the request, and we can then perform some operation on the data that we have received, and then we can respond back to that Ajax request. Okay, so JC Prime has asked a question: do you have a GSM module experience? I have an app with SMS real-time notification for disaster purpose. I made it with nth tier approach and architecture. Should I use an API or GSM module? Okay, so JC Prime, I personally have developed a project with GSM modem. Even my FYP was mobile application, but it also had an SMS service. Like I will talk about it later, but I personally have experience GSM, and what I would recommend is that between a web API, like we have Twilio. I think Twilio provides you an API for sending SMS to users, but I think I personally feel that they are a bit costly for my basic project. So I didn't use that Twilio. So what I did was I purchased a GSM modem. It was very small, like USB. Okay, and in that USB we have to enter our mobile SIM card. Okay, and in that SIM card what I did was I subscribed a SMS package, and then We use a library, GSM COM library. I use GSM COM library to communicate with my GSM modem, and that GSM COM library provided a lot of helpful functions, okay, and methods that I used in my project. And I I think I remember one of the method. It was a send SMS, okay, and in the send SMS, I provided a key, um, a number, and the message that I wanted to send, and the port number where my GSM modem was connected to. So personally, I think subscribing to an SMS package is very easy here, and it is not very costly. I think if we talk in dollar terms, it was around $3, maybe $3 for, or maybe I think $1 for an SMS package where I had 10,000 SMS to send, and the GSM modem was like I think $30. So it was very easy. So I personally think if you can afford a Twilio web API, you should use Twilio. Okay, I haven't explored their recent pricing, but for myself, I have experience with GSM modem, and I think it was very good. And even I have also developed an application for sending messages out to the students of the school. You can find it on my YouTube channel. I developed it for a client, and it was very good project, and a lot of clients have purchased that project. Okay, so Nabi Tariq has asked a question about Xamarin. Okay, so Xamarin, yeah, I know about Xamarin, but I haven't personally explored Xamarin. Xamarin is what you can, if I tell you, like mobile applications are usually developed in their own native languages, like Java. Okay, Java is used for developing Android application in Android Studio. Swift is used for developing iOS applications in whatever they have in iOS. Okay, for IDE. And Xamarin is basically, Microsoft has provided Xamarin in Visual Studio for developing these applications with the help of C#. Okay, so if you don't know about Java or you don't know about Swift, you can, and you only know about C#, then you can use Xamarin to develop Android or Swift Android or iOS mobile application with the help of Xamarin in C# programming languages. But personally, I have listened to some developers, and they say that Xamarin is not very good for developing these applications, and mostly in tech world or industry, they don't use Xamarin for developing these applications. Yeah, you can use Xamarin for small applications, but usually very big applications or corporate applications are not developed with ASP.Xamarin. Okay, so Bilal Amin has asked another question. Sir, have you deployed .NET on Azure? I haven't deployed on Azure. Microsoft has provided, I think, 1 year of free service on Azure, but I haven't explored Azure. Yeah, I have explored Amazon, what we have there, because usually our own applications are deployed on Amazon in our workplace. So yes, I have explored Amazon, but not Azure Cloud. Okay, so cascade delete in model class. Muhammad Asad Mughal, you asked this question, and I have no idea what you are talking about. Yeah, cascade delete is usually defined in when we are basically migrating our database, migrating our model classes to database. Okay, so there when we start a migration, entity framework creates a file where we have a lot of settings related to cascade delete for the specific models that are in that migration. But I don't know what you are talking about in the model class. What's the relationship between cascade delete and a model class? Usually cascade delete is an SQL concept. Like if you have two tables where you have two records that are connected with the help of foreign keys or primary key. So there you can specify cascade delete. Usually cascade delete is, I think, is true. So if you want to delete one record, and it has been referenced in another table, you have to delete that record first in order to delete this record. Okay, so but if you want to remove this constraint, then you can make this cascade delete false. Okay, everyone else, JC Prime has asked, I appreciate your answer. I also use GSM with SIM card. Video is kinda expensive. Yeah, exactly what I talked about. I didn't expect you also use GSM. Yeah. So when I think GSM is relatively easy to buy for a student. Okay, so but if you are working on corporate level project, I think mostly you would use Twilio. Okay. Bilal Amin, I personally work on Xamarin, but there are a lot of problems while working on Xamarin. Okay, that's maybe your experience with that. You can ask those questions or problem that you have in Xamarin on our C# group. I think there are a lot of good Xamarin developers in our group. Java Android Studio is far better than Xamarin. Yeah, exactly. But I think because those are specifically developed for like Android Studio is developed for Android applications, so I think it is native to Android development, and you should use Android Studio. And if you know the basics of one language, like if you know the basics of C#, I think you can easily work on Java. I personally haven't learned Java from any other source, and yet I still developed my final year project 2 years ago in Java. And I only know the basics of Java at that time. Okay, so Qasim Malik has asked another question: how to change value of constant field? I don't know what kind of question is that. But if you are talking about the constant keyword that we have in C#, it is used to specify that the value of this field is constant. You cannot change that value. So I'm not sure what you are talking about, like a constant field. What is a constant field? I don't know if it's form. Can you explain this? Can you explain your question again? If you are talking about the constant keyword in a property in a class, you cannot change that because it is there for a reason. You are specifying that it is constant, like the value of pi. It is constant. Okay, so you cannot change the value of pi. It will always be whatever it is, 3.14, something like that. Okay, that's great. And JC Prime, I have another suggestion for you. If you want to see if you want to look at one of my projects where I use GSM modem, you can go to my GitHub repository. I have Transit Pakistan, which was my final year project 2 years ago. So I have posted all the code of my project, all 5 modules: website, Android applications, web API, website, okay, and mobile service. Okay, so you can see the code that I use with GSM modem there. Okay, so Bilal Amin has asked another, maybe sir, as a beginner I face some issues on Xamarin, and you are right, there are also some seniors in uni who are making their FIQ on Xamarin, but I always looking for short and easy path. Yeah, you are right, but when you go in industry, I personally think that Xamarin is not that much used for developing these other applications like Android and iOS. I want to work on ASP, but I don't have idea of ASP.NET Core. Then what will I do? Okay, so on Muhammad, it is a good question, but I think ASP.NET MVC and ASP.NET Core, these are two very different concepts. Okay. ASP.NET MVC was developed, I think, in 2012, and ASP.NET Core has been released in 2017, I think. Okay, and yeah, they share most of their basics, but still they are different. Okay, so and if you are working on ASP.NET MVC, you don't have to worry about learning ASP.NET Core. Okay, and in the ASP.NET MVC, if you know the basics of C# language, I think you can easily move on to ASP.NET MVC. ASP.NET MVC is used for, as most of you know, it is used for developing web applications. As I also talked about it in our last session, and in last session we discussed more in detail about ASP.NET Core as well, and what are the good features of ASP.NET Core. I would recommend you to watch that video. Qasim Malik has asked another obviously different type of question: how to inherit sealed class? Why you are asking these type of questions? I don't know. So you see, a sealed keyword is added to a class in order to specify that this class cannot be inherited anymore. Okay, so if you are specifying sealed, why do you want to inherit that class again? I don't know why you are doing that. If a class is sealed, it cannot be inherited, or as what I know at this moment. I haven't revised the basics of my object-oriented programming for more than 2 years. But what I know is that sealed class cannot be inherited. Okay, JC Prime, what can you say about the architecture of knob commerce? Okay, so knob commerce, I have only heard about knob commerce once. Okay, and I think what I remember is it was an open source e-commerce project, or whatever it is, library. I think it was a library, an open source. I don't remember it because I have to actually search. I have only explored it once. Personally, I haven't explored anything on e-commerce about knob commerce, but I know that it was developed in .NET, and you can use it for developing e-commerce application with knob commerce. But personally, I haven't done. I have developed a few projects on few e-commerce projects, but they are mostly on WooCommerce on WordPress platform. Okay, so a lot of you have asked very good questions. I think it has been how much time? So if you have any more questions related to ASP.NET MVC, please sure ask in the comments, or otherwise we can end the session in 5 minutes. Okay, so On has asked another question: when you will start online training ASP.NET MVC? Okay, so On, I have a course related to ASP.NET MVC online, and you can see the detail of this on my website csharpens.com. If you go to csharpens.com, you can find the course that I teach about ASP.NET MVC. The course content is posted there, but I haven't thought about starting a whole session, a whole team of students recently. Okay, so I have to work on that right now. Okay, so JC Prime has asked another question: how can you explain Umbraco? It is an MVC, right? Umbraco. JC Prime, I think I have heard about it, but I personally haven't explored it much. Maybe it might be related to MVC, but I don't recall anything related to Umbraco, or I haven't explored it just yet. but this is a very good experience for me as well. I'm beginning to learn a lot of these new keywords from you guys. So after this video, I am sure I'm going to explore about these topics as well. Okay. Hi everyone else. Okay, so I think none of you have any more questions, and today it was very good session again, and I'm sure I will try to do it again in future if I got some more time. But for now, I think it has been very good experience for me as well. So let's end the session right now. Okay, everyone. Bye. And thanks for being in this session. Bye, everyone.